The way it's supposed to.
No, it was not.
Hello, welcome. Okay, very good. Absolutely, I agree. You can feel self-righteous later. Waiting.
No, they're good. I would love Doritos.
All right.
Good afternoon, I'm Nita Farmer. I'm with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce and I'd like to welcome you to our new knowledge series. Today we're on our second series part, and I would like to welcome Ms. Peg Ayres with Ayres and Company Consulting. So thank you.
Thank you. Hello, welcome. If you're here in the room, if you'd be so kind as to create yourselves those little name tents, I would appreciate it. I'll do some more pens here. It's more interesting. As I was saying to the other guys who were here a minute ago, I found last month I was picking on the people whose names I knew and not so much on the ones I didn't know. So I thought, maybe if I had all the names in front of me, that would be easier on Jim. So welcome. Welcome back to those of you who were here last month for our first of 4 parts. And welcome to those of you who are new and those of you who are online. For anybody who's new, who this is their first session, John Maxwell is an internationally recognized and respected leadership expert. And his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Follow Them and People Will Follow You, has sold over 1 million copies around the world. And the latest one to Jim. In 4 new knowledge sessions this summer, 1 per month, we're discussing steps that you can take immediately to improve your leadership skills, and make you more effective in all aspects of your life. And as Nita says, I'm Peg Ayres. I'm the founder of Ayres & Company Consulting. I'm in Damascus, Virginia. And I am a John Maxwell certified teacher. Hello, Mariam. Come on in, just sign in and grab some note paper and join us. So for more than 25 years, I've been leading large customer contact centers. That's my background. And now I'm out on my own and doing things like this. So I'm very happy to have you all here. And how happy am I, for those of you who were here last month, that the PowerPoint is working today and everything's going so far so good. So here's the schedule. This is what we're doing in our first session last month in June. We did 5 laws. Today we're going to do 6 through 10. The laws of solid ground, respect, intuition, magnetism, and connection. Then Wednesday, the 16th of August, we'll do 6 more. So I'll have to talk faster than usual, I guess, for that one. And then, God forbid you're saying, right? And then September 13th, we'll do the last 5. So very happy to have you all here. Each one is fine as a standalone, but it's nice if you can get to all 4, one way or the other, online or here. Especially great if you're here, because we can have more discussion that way. But you can do them standalone, you can catch up later, but it's very nice if you can put them all together, because as, well, John says, sometimes people will stop him in a presentation like this when he's doing the 21 laws, and they'll say, so what I just want to know, give me one law, the most important law. And John will say, the most important law is, there are 21 laws. All right, there's 21 of them. They all go together. Hi, guys. So we are going to do all 21 in the course of the next couple of months. So let's take a look back at last month. We did the law of the lid. Leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. We did the law of influence. The true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. The law of process. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. The law of navigation. Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. And the law of addition, to me, one of the most important. Leaders add value by serving others. And last time we did this little quiz. This is just for yourselves, just to think about, sorry, very sensitive, just to think about where you are now and what you want to improve on. And if those of you who were here in the room last time have these, if you'd like another copy, you're welcome to, and some of you perhaps would like one. So I will, very good. And I'll also give you guys the name tense, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, I'd like to find it. I'd like to, but no, I'm done. Good, good. Did you want to? Oh, sure, that'd be great. No, that's going to have an actual help. That's very nice. Doesn't want to stay on that page. So the one word that may not be as familiar as others on this little quiz is the word discernment, which just means judgment. It means the ability to look at something and figure out the right way to go and the right thing to do. All right, it really, really wants to do that law and not this one. So this is just for yourself. Take a look. Think about where you feel like you are today, what kinds of things you want to work on, and where you'd like to be going from here. And now, obviously, we're going to do the law of solid ground because the system is insisting we are going to do the law of solid ground. Trust is the foundation of leadership. This is one I would consider one of the really critical tenets of leadership. Think about for a moment the best leader you've known or worked with. So you've got somebody in your head? Did you trust them? Okay. Now think about the worst. Got somebody in your head now? No names? You got somebody in your head now? Did you trust them?
Nope.
Often that's where it starts, right? I don't trust you, you can't lead me. Would anybody like to give us an example on either side? Again, no names. Either very good, trustworthy, or very not so good, not so trustworthy. You got somebody in mind, Mary?
Open door policy, listen very well to my complaints,
Uh-huh.
and help. Very well.
Okay, all right. So you trusted him. He or she was going to tell you the truth. You could count on what they said. Great, thank you. So it might be possible to trust a bad leader. I mean, there might be people who are bad for other reasons. It's not because you don't trust them. But it's really impossible not to trust. You have to trust a good leader. A good leader has to be trustworthy. If a leader is not trustworthy, they just can't be a good leader. So that's what the law of solid ground is all about. John says, trust is like change in a leader's pocket. Each time you make good leadership decisions, you earn more change. And each time you make poor decisions, you pay out some of your change to the people. All leaders have a certain amount of change in their pocket when they start in a new leadership position. You know that whole honeymoon period where you're new and all your ideas are great and everybody listens to you, that whole thing? You have a lot of change in your pocket right then, right? It takes work to hang on to it. He says when you're out of change, you're out as the leader. So does that mean that automatically somebody uses up their leadership change and then they get tossed out as the leader? Not necessarily. We certainly can all probably name someone who is out of leadership change but is still in that position. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to realize they're out of leadership change. Who realizes first that there's no leadership change? The bosses or the people who are working for the person?
The people that are working for the person.
The people who are working for. They're the ones who get it right away. The bosses, especially, well, really it doesn't matter. I've seen oblivious bosses in the same building, right next door, sometimes in the same office. And then I've seen oblivious bosses from far, far, far away. I don't think it makes a difference, right? It's just, yeah, sometimes the bosses don't realize. Sometimes they're acting the same way. So they're out of leadership change too. So everybody's out of it. But those of us who are working for, who are trying to figure out how to manage with these folks, we're suffering because they are out of leadership change. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to be there. But are they really leading? They've got the title, but are they leading? No. Because remember, the true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you're leading and nobody's following, what are you doing? Anybody remember?
You're going for a walk.
You're going for a walk. That's exactly right. You're just going for a walk. Thank you so much. You're just going for a walk. You're not leading. All right? So charisma often gets you in the door. But John says it's character that keeps you inside the door. It's an inside job. Character, John says all the time, character really, really matters. If you want to keep influencing people, you've got to be of good character, of recognizable. But you're not really leading, you're just taking a walk. All right? So to build trust, a leader must exhibit competence, connection, and character. And John points out you can't go beyond the limit of your character for very long. People find you out. Again, when you first walk in, it's the honeymoon period, you're brilliant, everything is smart, everything you do, it's great. It doesn't last, all right? If people start to realize that you're not who you say you are, and you're not going to back up what you're saying, they figure that out pretty fast. Is there anything else you would add to this? To build trust, a leader must exhibit competence, connection, and character. Is there anything else that you feel is critical for building trust beyond that?
Like listening,
Listening, yes, yes.
really listening to them.
Got to, got to. And people in general aren't great at that. People love to talk and aren't always so good about listening. And it is a cliche, 2 ears, 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking, but it's a cliche for a reason because people need to hear that, but they don't always pay attention. And particularly, we've all seen people who work their way up in the ranks. Sometimes it's that first move. I'm on the floor, I'm out on the front lines, and now I'm a supervisor. And so I am a big deal. I have been working a long time to be a supervisor. I really wanted this. I earned this. I deserve this. And who are you little peons who are thinking you're going to talk to me, right? We've all seen it. It's not uncommon. People need to be taught that they have to be twice as attentive now to everybody, or more so. Because when they were just buds and they were just going out, going out to lunch together or going out to smoke together or whatever, that was one thing. But now they're responsible for all those people. And they've got to be equally responsible for all those people. They can't be saying nice things about you and nasty things about you because you always got on my nerves back in the day and now you're in trouble. But people need to be taught that. They don't learn that by osmosis. They don't just know that. They don't. Now, some people just have the right instincts, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Some people really are sort of natural-born leaders, and they get that, and they really have that inclination to serve. That's what they want to do. And so they get, when they become supervisors, they're all over it. They did it. But because they really wanted to serve other people. And so now they're in the position. Now they still need guidance on how, but they're going to do the right things. They've got the right instincts. But a lot of them, it's that first taste of power. And so they aren't good. They aren't even thinking about listening. Even the good ones, sometimes they think, I'm a supervisor now, so I'm going to tell you everything I know about this. And I know a lot because I've been studying for this for a long time. I went to a class and everything. Okay? I'm going to tell you all about this, all right? And they do, but they forget that if they haven't listened to their people, they don't even know what they should be talking about. But they don't know that. These are the things that your folks need to know when they're coming up. Somebody needs to tell them. They're not going to just know automatically. So I've got a little quiz here. Again, all of these are just for your own knowledge, where you can give yourself a grade on a scale of 1 to 10. And why don't I just give a bunch to you to send that way, if you would. Close here in the middle. So all of these are elements of the law of solid ground. So what I'd like you to do, with 1 being an area of weakness, 10 being an area of great strength, rate yourself on each of these areas from 1 to 10, where you are today. And again, we're not sharing these, we're not turning them in or anything, so you want to be honest primarily with yourself. and I should say, online, I have put the slides onto the Facebook page, but this is not on there, so I will add that afterwards. I just realized that as I'm looking at it, so I apologize for those of you online, and I will add that as soon as we're done. So now on the way home tonight, or at some other point, on the way out of here and on your way back to work, think back to this list. Take it out later when you've got a little time. Take it out next week when you've got a little time and a little distance from this moment. And think about, what are your strengths? What are your areas of opportunity? What do you want to improve on? So all of these little deals are just to give you a little food for thought. Any thoughts on that? Anything particular that you're looking at and you're saying, I don't know that that's as important as something else. I don't know that that belongs there, or anything you think is missing, anything you wonder about? Pretty good? All right. So stash that away, just like your other little quiz like we talked about last time. That other little quiz too, I'd like you to stash that away and then go back to it from time to time and say, hey, I think I'm improving in this area or that area. Because you're making the effort to give it some thought. I mean, regardless of what I say up here, you're coming here because you want to be better leaders. You want a better understanding. And the fact that you make that effort at all is big, and much more than many people do. And then you have some conversation and you think about some things, and you're going to improve. You're absolutely going to improve in these areas. So very, very worth doing. So that is the law of solid ground. There is the focus overall. We want to be on integrity, authenticity. Unfortunate that one's in there since I have trouble saying it, and discipline. What does integrity mean to you?
Honesty.
Honesty. Thank you. Anything else?
True to their word.
True to their word. They say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Because all this is about creating trust. Solid ground is trust. Trust is you say you're going to do something for me, and you do it. And you all have the notes pages. I made pages with notes. Andrea's writing madly, and I got to thinking maybe she did again.
I didn't get one.
All right, let's put these out to you guys. Yes, I know. I was feeling for it. You could grab a couple more. Marion. Oh, gosh, okay. We need a bunch more. These guys, I'll grab that one. There you go. You're welcome. Sorry, I should have asked that question sooner. You guys are good? All right. So now that we've eliminated Andrea's hand cramp, we're doing good. My pleasure. She's writing a lot for. Okay. All right. Very good.
I'm pretty fast.
Yes. Well, that's a good thing. You've kept up very nicely. So integrity, honesty, doing what you say you're going to do. How about authenticity? Being real. Yeah. Being real. Being yourself. Right? If everybody would just be themselves. You're better at it than anybody else by definition. Okay? If everybody would just be themselves. Wouldn't life be easier? Like those commercials, where I guess it's an insurance commercial, where the people get together and they say exactly what they mean. Like, in the new house, I baked you this pie so I could come snoop around your house.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Life really would be easier if everybody really would just say what they mean. Well, I'm not recommending all that truth. I always say my husband has no idea of the concept of the polite lie. All right. Sometimes when somebody says, "Oh, how does this look?" or "What do you think?" you're just supposed to say, "Yeah, that's great." No, he's got no idea. He's like, yeah, that's really not working for you. Honey, they're out in public now. Just be quiet about it. But so we want you to be yourself within the normal parameters of social interaction, right? But we do want to, you want to be yourself. Again, this is a rookie supervisor issue. Well, I can't be myself. Myself is who was out with those guys, last week, and now I'm their supervisor, so I can't be myself. I have to be somebody else. I mean, they're not saying it in those words, but that's really how they feel.
That's
I've got to be just like Alice, or just like Jill, or just like Amy, or whoever. But you're not Alice or Jill or Amy. You're yourself. So we've got to help them see how to be themselves appropriately and give them the parameters they need to be themselves well, to be their best selves, making their own people their best selves. That's our job, to help folks with that. How about discipline? What does that mean? Why does it matter, more importantly?
You can't discipline yourself, you can't discipline others.
Well, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you get people telling you what to do, and you realize that they're not doing it. And you may have, some people sometimes get up in the pulpit and tell you a lot about what you ought to do. But you might know that there's some other things going on, and not at all what they're telling you to do, right? You have to have your own self-discipline. And then you've got to be consistent. Again, you can't treat Joy different from Jim, different from Mario. You can treat them differently, but you have to treat them fairly. You have to be consistent. All of that is discipline. It doesn't come naturally, but it's definitely something you can learn. And you want to set the right example. So John says, if you want to find out if people trust you, just ask them. That sounds amazingly simple, right? It's a little overstated in terms of its simplicity, I think. Now, you've got two elements at work that you're interested in. Do your bosses trust you, and do your people trust you? So you can figure out a little bit about the bosses by what kinds of responsibilities they're giving you, and what they say to you, assuming you trust them. Okay. So assuming that you've got a reasonable relationship with your boss tells you the truth, and they give you certain responsibilities, and they tell you, I'm really happy, and next I'm going to do this or that or the other, you can say that they trust you. If you've got reason to think maybe they don't, like you're not getting the same assignments as somebody else, that needs to be an important and careful conversation with the boss. So you're going in, you're sitting down, you're scheduling the time, you're sitting down, and you're saying, hey, I really like more projects like thus and such. What do I need to work on to get there? And you hope that the boss is honest enough to then tell you what you need to work on to get there. You do not stroll in and say, Susie got that project over there and I wanted it, and that's not fair, all right? The last words in the English language any boss wants to hear is, that's not fair. Because the answer is, life's not fair, okay? That's the way it is. And you really want to say that, but that isn't usually moving the conversation forward, so often you refrain. But once in a while you do say, look, really, life is not fair, all right? We're all doing the best we can here, but you want to go in and have a reasonable conversation. That's true of whatever you're going to do. Don't tell me what Susie, Sally, and Jamie did, all right? Tell me what you're doing, what you're looking for, and what you're willing to do. I want you to take responsibility. So that's what we're looking for there. So that's fine. You can find out from your bosses, assuming you've got some fairly honest, trustworthy bosses. If you have a mentor, somebody who is, at your level or maybe a little bit higher in the organization, but somebody who's got your best interests at heart and keeps their mouth shut, you could always ask them what their opinion is if you don't have what you're looking for from the boss. So those things are all doable. But what about your people? If you ask them and they don't trust you, what are they going to say? You say, Kathy, do you trust me?
I don't know.
Okay. That's one way to go. Let's say I'm your boss, and I've been your boss for 6 months. And I want to know.
Oh, the irony.
And I want to know, do you trust me?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
So let's say you don't. You don't trust me. That's how you feel. And I come to you and say, Kathy, do you trust me?
Sometimes I'm confused by the answers you give me when I ask you questions, so I don't know what to believe.
Very nice. Okay. So you may get somebody brave like Kathy who's willing to stand up and give you a truth there. But I'll tell you what you're normally going to get. What am I going to get, Amy, when I am your boss? You don't trust me.
If I don't trust you, I'm gonna say, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say, yeah, because then if I say no, then you could really get me in trouble.
Well, that's right. I don't trust you. I know you want to undermine me. I know you don't have my back. I know you don't have my best interest at heart. There is nothing compelling me to tell you the truth. And I'm not going to. So you're in a mess there because you can't just ask them, but you need some way to find out. Let's say your heart's in the right place. You've been on the wrong track for this 6 months and people don't trust you, but your heart's in the right place. You've had a revelation. You realize that you're on the wrong track. You want to fix this, okay? But you've got no leadership change left, right? Your pockets are empty of leadership change, but you really want feedback from people. You've got a few ways you can do it. You can do a survey, a well-organized, well-written, very totally anonymous survey. Again, people don't necessarily trust that either, but you could do that. You can create some sort of anonymous way for people to give you feedback. Now, I used to, when I would run a center, and this started way back in West Virginia, so almost 20 years ago. I put up a sign one day, I put up a big piece of paper, because we had to decide what our float was going to be for the holiday parade. So, put up a big piece of paper and said, what do you want the float to be for the holiday parade? And I got a couple of answers about that, and we eventually came up with something, and we did that, okay. But I got other things about other things. You know, I wish carpet got cleaned more often. I wish my supervisor this or that or the other. Like, huh, people like graffiti as a means of feedback. So then I did it officially. So I put up one of these big Post-it note, you know what I mean, the great big poster size Post-it notes, on the wall, whole pad of it, with a little sign that said, this is Peg's page. If you've got something that you'd like different, write it down anonymously, and I'll answer you. And sure enough, I got all kinds of good advice from that. And I would walk back every morning. Sometimes you need like an extra stiff cup of coffee when you're walking back there. It's like really, sometimes you have to walk away and come back to it. But in general, I'd go back every morning and I would answer whatever there was. And so I got to answer a lot of things that people wanted the answers to. And I got to learn what was on people's minds. Now, this is not for the faint of heart. I've explained this to many, many people. I've never seen anybody actually go ahead and do it. It isn't all that easy. First of all, you've got to keep up, and then you've got to be patient, and you've got to not say the first 7 things that came in your head when you saw it. All right. I was occasionally a little bit of a wise guy. One time in Ohio, I had somebody say, all this thanking is getting on my nerves. Thank you for coming to work day, cards for this, whatever. I said, if you'd like to let your supervisor know who you are, or let me know who you are, I'll try to make it a point not to thank you anymore. You know? One of the supervisors, when that one was done, he took that page. He probably still has it to this day. But really, sometimes you really, please. Again, we're all doing the best we can. Whoever says, I wish I was thanked less. Just this one person. But anyway, did this then there, and when I finished up there, people said, hey, you should take that where you go. We love that. We love Peg's page. And so I went on, and I used it in Ohio. I used it here in Bristol. And when I first explained it to supervisors, they're like, what? You want to let them do what? You want to let them just say stuff in front of everybody? I said, well, they're saying stuff in front of everybody already. The only everybody's who it's not in front of is us. So aren't we better off if we know what they have to say? And only once in a great while did I have to rein them all in, say, stop, no more. This conversation has gotten personal, it's gotten whatever. You can't do that. But generally people understood that wasn't the point of it, that wasn't what they were supposed to be doing, and so they didn't. Generally they behaved. But it is a way to get good feedback. But there are others. Generally you've got somebody, even if you have been the Wicked Witch of the West for 6 months, usually there's somebody who actually does have your back, somebody who is brave and is willing to say the truth to you, and you can have a heart-to-heart with them. And there's going to be somebody on your staff, probably. Or it could be somebody in HR helping you out. You have a heart-to-heart with them and say, hey, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf, I need help, I need feedback, please, please. They can help you. They can tell you what people are saying. And as you start to, you can build leadership change back, okay? You can get it back in your pocket if you get back on solid ground. Right? So if you've broken trust with your people, you want to start today to fix it. If you've broken trust at home, start there. But then go back to work and fix that. And if you've got people who have broken trust with you, I would recommend Kathy's brave approach. Very appropriate, very respectful, but sometimes when I hear this from you, I'm a little confused because then I hear some different things. So I could use some more clarity around what it is you'd like me to do. We've got to be brave, right? If we're leaders, we've got to help our leaders be better. That's what we've got to do. So you can ask them, and if they trust you, if they truly, truly trust you, but this is one of those little tricky things. If they truly trust you, they say yes. And if they truly don't trust you at all, they say yes. So it's not in and of itself a really useful way to get information. That's it for the law of solid ground. Comments or additions or thoughts on any of that? All right, so we will move on then to the law of respect. People naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. This is given a choice. This is naturally follow. All right. I'm not saying that every boss is stronger than the people who work for them. Sadly, that's not always the case. But people don't want to follow somebody that they feel is weak. Have you ever been in a group that came together with no official leader? It's just like you've got a little committee or something, and what happens there? Nothing gets done. Okay, that's one thing that can happen. Yes, nothing gets done. So there's no leader and nothing gets done. Yeah, that's one possibility. What else can happen? Have you seen anything different happen than that? Have you ever been in one where something did get done? No, it's always something that's not done. Okay. So in those groups, you don't have anybody who really wants to take the leadership position, or they don't feel they can. Depending on the politics in a place, it might be dangerous to take the leadership position. But if you're in a group without that piece of it, if you're in, say, a brand new committee for a nonprofit, nobody knows anybody and everybody, everybody's equal, you're going to see somebody usually sort of step up and say, well, hey, how about if we do this? And maybe we could do that. And the next thing you know, they end up being the leader. They're like, oh, you should be the president of the group. Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to make a couple of suggestions. I wasn't actually looking for that. But that's what happens. But if you've got nobody who wants to, or if the politics don't allow it, then you end up with this little milling about thing that is frustrating. The better leader you are, the more frustrating that is. It's not a good place to be, not at all. So respect has to be earned. So you may have people following you because of your position. Question is, would they choose to follow you if they had a choice? I was very flattered to go to a center here in the area. You know, I've been away from my center about a year, and my people all went ahead of me. And so we ended up, well, not all, but it's a very, very small number left there now, but all the customer service people all went. Many of them went to work in other centers. And so I was in a different place where many of my former employees now work. And several of them, you know, of course they saw me, they're like, Peg, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm just on a tour. Oh, we thought maybe you were working here. Like, well, that like made my week, right? I was just so happy. But, you know, that they would have chosen. They would have chosen to follow me. And that's good stuff. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. But you do it by building up that leadership change every single day. You don't do it just by accident. So you want people to see you as a strong leader. You're here because you want to be a stronger leader or because you want to help others be stronger leaders. But you want people to see you. You want people to respect you. And you want to be on solid ground with them. So John says people don't follow others by accident. They follow individuals whose leadership they trust. So you want to look and think about who chooses to follow you. If they were all given a choice today, would they still follow you? What's your leadership level? And think about, you can think about your employees, your family members, whoever. If you asked them as their leader to do something, and there was no consequence to them for not doing it, would they do it? That's an inside your head question on the way from here, on the way home tonight, when you've got a little peace and quiet, but it's an important question. Would people follow you? You know, Jim's involved with a volunteer organization. They elect leaders periodically, and the people who voted for that person think they're good, probably, at least to start with. People who didn't vote may not think if they voted for somebody else, but that person that got elected to be in charge is responsible for bringing everybody in. They've got to lead all the people. So even though there was a vote, that's an unusual situation. Normally you get promoted, nobody got to vote on it. Okay? But in this case, a whole group of people votes on who's going to be in charge. And clearly it's normally not unanimous. So you've got people who really don't feel like that was such a great choice. Maybe you got people who feel like they were a better choice. But now the dilemma is, how do you bring all those people in? And you better start. You started with a good handful of leadership change with the people who voted for you, but you started with a nickel with those that didn't, right? So you better start building that up in a hurry, because you can run out very fast. So one of the first things is you got to make sure that you're treating everybody consistently. This is a little like that whole supervisor situation where they've just come up. Same sort of thing. If a person is just going to reward the people who voted for them, that's going to verify what these other folks are thinking. So would they choose to follow? In the first few months, you want to be in a position where the large majority would choose to follow you. That would be your goal, I think, when you were voted into a position like that. You want to be, and the same thing can happen easily at work. You get promoted, there was somebody else who wanted to be promoted, and they think you're a mess. They don't think you should be there, but there you are. So how do you get them on board? That's hard work, but it's the most important work. If you can get them on board, it was like we talked last time about how John went into a church where he knew there was this very negative guy who had a lot of people on his side. And he started by sitting him down and saying, look, I'm going to keep you involved in what I'm doing. But if you choose to be negative all the time, that's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for us. And you just can't do it. And nobody had been honest with this guy like that before. So John Maxwell does it. The guy is so grateful. And he then is a great supporter. That's one of the best things to do. Pick out the one that you know is the biggest trouble. Get them on board. A whole lot of people follow once you get them on board. So John says these are the top ways that leaders gain respect of others. Natural leadership ability, we've talked about this some. Some people just have greater skills. But what we talked about in the law of the lid, the law of process, every person who chooses to can be a better leader. Everybody can learn that. If you've got natural leadership ability, people are going to want to follow you. But if you don't have these other traits here, they're not going to follow for long. It's the old charisma character situation, right? They follow because you have the charisma, but they won't stay because you don't have the character. They'll follow because you've got the natural leadership ability, but they won't stay if you don't have those others. You can't rely on talent alone. Respect for others, absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. Dictatorial leaders rely on intimidation to get others to do what they want. That's not really leadership because it's not true influence, right? They're just taking a walk, right? They're not really influencing people. Good leaders understand that really leadership is voluntary. It's voluntary for people to choose to follow you. So they show respect and they gain respect. People want to follow people that they respect greatly. And people want to be respected, and there's no doubt about that. Courage. Good leaders do what's right, even in the face of failure, or, much more likely, relentless criticism. The more you lead, the more you get criticized, right? It's a guarantee, guaranteed. So you have to be courageous. You have to be willing to tell the truth. You have to be willing to stand up. Success. People are naturally drawn to it. People like to see successful people, and they want to be part of it. So they respect the accomplishments and they're going to follow. They want to be part of what you're doing. Loyalty. Loyalty's changed a lot over the years. When I was growing up, my father worked for IBM. I was the oldest of 6 kids. He worked for IBM from the day he got out of the Navy when he was 20, and he retired from there, like 40 years, almost 40 years later. Stayed with IBM the whole time. We did the bus trips to watch baseball games. They put braces on our teeth. They took care of everything, and Dad was loyal to them. And that was pretty much the way it was in those days. You know, he started in the 50s. That's the way it was. It's not the way it is now. Now it's said that the average worker changes jobs 10 times before age 36. Wow, that's a lot. That was not how it used to be, but it is how it is today. And anybody who's hiring knows that's how it is. So, and IBM in the meantime, they've done a lot now. They never did a layoff or reduction in force of any kind. Now they've done many of the people are contractors. They don't even work for them anymore. So the loyalty thing has gone away on both sides of the equation. I'm a big baseball fan. A baseball player like Derek Jeter, who stays with the same team the entire time, is an anomaly. I mean, he had an amazing following in his last year because it was so unusual. And he was, he was somebody that people respected, and he always just came across like a good guy, all the time, for all the 20 years he was there. So people really appreciated that, but it's definitely not the norm. You've got players moving back and forth all the time. Remember, Mariano Rivera was a great closer for the Yankees, a pitcher. And he had come up with Jeter. So they'd come up out of the minor leagues into the major leagues. They'd been there a long time. And the next year, or on the off season, Mariano's contract was going to get redone. His contract was up for renewal. And he was quoted in the Daily News saying, "I always want to be a Yankee." And I thought, your agent is going to have your head. Because he was giving away a whole lot of bargaining position there. But it was true, he really did. And the honesty worked for him, and he ended up with a good contract because he was arguably the greatest closer. He's certainly among the greatest closers in baseball. And so he ended up still with a good contract, and he stayed with the Yankees and retired from the Yankees. And that made the Yankee fans very, very happy. But, the world is different now. But people look up to a leader who's going to stay with them for the long haul. I was with Office Depot, Office Max. We were Office Max for a long time. Then Office Depot bought us, or a merger of equals, which meant Office Depot bought us, and took over. And so we had this CEO who was all about, as he was supposed to be. He did his job. It was all about slashing millions and millions and millions of dollars. Well, today, I see that he's gone to work for Dunkin' Donuts. I love Dunkin' Donuts, so he's their new CEO today, so I'm like, just don't mess with the coffee and don't mess with the donuts and we'll be all right. Yeah, so bosses like that, as soon as he came in and we saw what his background was, we went, well, we see what he's up to. He's gonna slash and burn, and he's gonna move on with millions. Oh, matter of fact, that number that he was getting paid and that number he got to walk away, I can't even tell you because I blocked it out of my head as soon as I learned it because it was so aggravating. It's ridiculous the amount of money that these guys get paid. They do hard work that I don't want to do, I'm not saying that, but the differences between, we talked last month about the Costco CEO who only makes a certain not a percentage, but a certain multiple over what his frontline people make. And he's conscious of that because he wants to be that kind of leader. He wants to be a good leader. That's what you really want, but that's not the way of the world, and we all can't change everything. We just change ourselves, our circles, our area. That's what we can do. But a loyal leader is somebody you feel like they're in it for the long haul. They're with you, and they've got your back. They're not going to sell you out. They're not going to stare at you. They're going to stand by you. They're going to look out for their followers even if it hurts them. When there's blame, they're taking it. When there's praise, they're sharing it. But when there's blame, they're taking it. You've all been side by side with somebody who, as soon as the boss said, you got a problem in marketing, he says, well, it's Sally Joe over here. One of his own people. Well, come on. They're your people. You are responsible for them. You can't be blaming them. But it happens all the time. But that's not good leadership. Good leaders aren't going to do that. They're going to salute. They're going to go have to talk with Sally Joe. But they're not going to be selling Sally Joe to, throwing her under the bus, out in front of the boss. And finally, value added to others. This is a critical piece of the 21 laws and comes up again and again. We've already talked about it quite a bit. It's all about service to others. The law of addition is all about service to others. Followers value leaders who add value to them. And you can tell what kind of respect your people have for you by how they behave. If they've got your back, will they step up for you? Will they take a risk for you? Or do they throw you under the bus at the first opportunity? Boss gets on them, and well, Faith told me to do it that way. Fine. Faith gets beat. But that person totally did not have your back. They're not respectful. They're not. You don't have the relationship you want there. So fine, you take the beating, and now you circle back around and say, hey, what are we going to do here? How are we going to fix this? Have some honest conversation. People who don't have your back, they're making excuses. They're not respectful. If you haven't earned the respect, it's very hard to get the people to follow you. That's it for the law of respect. Thoughts on that one? Things you'd like to add or discuss?
I would like to say that for major corporations, a lot of these laws, even though they are probably in their books, they're not practiced or followed because the bottom line becomes the main purpose when we're in management. I used to be in charge of a group, and we already knew that once a year, one of my staff had to be put on probation, regardless of how they operate.
Had to be put on probation, regardless of how they were doing.
Yeah, because
Wow.
of the real curve.
Yep, the famous curve, which makes no sense, right?
Absolutely not. And
Yep.
You have to advocate for your people, argue with the upper management, but in the end, upper management wins. And you can do your best, because there will always be, of course, unfortunately, someone who needs more supervision than others.
Right.
Under that category.
Yes. So it's tough because you fight for your people, and if you realize that you can't win the fight for your people, you really need to be looking at, is this the right place for you. I say that cautiously because I don't want to say that it's easy to walk away from a job and, you know, in this day and age, in this area, it's not, you're not in New York City. You can't walk next door and something, not, come to think of it though, not that the folks in New York City are having an easy time of it either, but you're not necessarily mobile, for one thing. I mean, we live here, right, because we love it here, all right? We're here for a reason. So if something happens, you know, like I ended up out of my job, I wasn't willing to say, yeah, I'm going to go someplace else. So I get the pain of saying this is not the right place for me, but sometimes you really do have to say that. I made that decision once the owner of the company had figured out who was going to get let go in a reduction in force. He had it all figured out. I was the vice president of the company, but I didn't know until he called me down to tell me who, and I had to turn around and go do it. Now, meantime, he had told other vice presidents ahead of me because he was only doing one department at a time. So my people were watching other departments' people walk out with boxes. And they were all like, Peg, what's happening? Yeah, wish I knew. But the one funny moment in that whole thing was one of the people on my staff, we knew, we had talked about it several times, we knew that her position would never last through the next reduction in force. It was a clearly expendable position, we all knew it. So people are walking out with boxes, I still don't know anything. She comes in, she sits down, and she says, if you could get to me first when you get the list, because I've got some Christmas shopping to do. Okay, and I did. But that day, I said, even though I live in a small town and I don't know where else I'm going to go to work and I can't leave, I'm going to find a way. It took a year, but I found something else. Because that day I said, after all these years and all the abuse, this is the ultimate, because this was my people. This was my people in a miserable position. I couldn't have it. So at some point you maybe have to make that decision. But again, I don't take it lightly. And there are certainly ways where you can work to improve things, and I think you should. But, you know, and sometimes, yeah, the dang curve, well, you do have somebody who's not but I've had people try to force me sometimes into that curve, and I was in a position where it just didn't make any sense. I say, you compare my team with everybody else in the whole place. You put somebody else at the bottom of that curve, but it isn't anybody on my team, and here's why. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose that argument, but you do your best, right? But you're right, there's a lot. That's all you can do. I mean, you do your best, and at some point you say, this is, my soul cannot do this. All right. But you know the trade-offs, and no place is perfect. So you know all this. Thank you, Mary. All right, our next law, the law of intuition. Leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. John says that this is the hardest law to explain because the leaders get it, and the people who aren't into it don't, and he doesn't know how to explain it. So, but we are going to try and make sense of it. So leaders are evaluating everything according to their leadership bias. It's just part of who they are. Because it's art as much as science, right? We can't just teach people. Management is a science. Leadership is really an art, right? Management's got the numbers and the reports and this and that, and there's a way to do all these different things. But really leading people, there's an art to that. It's not something you could just write down in a book. So it requires intuition, which has to do with natural skills as well as learned skills. John talks about that he's seldom in one office. So he's got a bunch of different companies. He's got the companies that do the whole teaching, speaking thing. He's got a nonprofit, a huge nonprofit, that goes to other countries and they teach thousands of leaders at a time, and then those leaders go out and teach thousands more. So it's amazing, tens of thousands of people learn the John Maxwell leadership principles in, Paraguay, Colombia, wherever they happen to go. Places where the leadership of the country sometimes is not exactly what you might be looking for. So they start, but he does work with the government offices, and they start at just like a next level down, and the people agree. They supply all the books and everything, and people agree. They're going to go out and they're going to teach these people. So anyway, John is not always in one place all the time. So the president of Equip, that's the nonprofit, he said, John, when you come to the office, you re-enter our world very easily. John thought that was interesting, so he asked him more about it. And he said, well, you ask good questions, you're aware of the atmosphere, and you quickly step alongside us. That's a real Maxwell concept. He talks about that all the time, the concept of alongside. He wants to come alongside all of us. We want to come alongside our people. We're not dragging them by the hand. We're not pushing them in the butt. We're coming alongside them. All right? So it's a great Maxwell concept, and it's an important concept. So the boss there, the president at Equip, he said it's not awkward. And John realized that that has to do with his intuition. John is obviously great leadership intuition. And so he understands how to come alongside. And so if we have good leadership intuition, we know what's up. We'll verify it later by looking at a report. And sometimes something might jump out of a report that looks interesting. And that's our intuition sometimes that's telling us that. Not something that's necessarily, just by the book out, but you say, huh, that's funny, let me chase that. That's leadership intuition. So leaders are readers of trends. So followers, they're going to focus on their current work. Managers are worried about the efficiency and the effectiveness. But leaders are looking for a broader, more big picture approach. They've got the ability and the responsibility to step back from what's happening at the moment and see where the organization is headed. We've talked about how leaders should be willing to do anything, but they shouldn't be doing it all the time. If a leader is always doing the other work, and weaker leaders are sometimes more inclined to that because they were comfortable when they were doing the other work. That's what they used to do before you went and made them a supervisor, and now I'm really good at that other work. Okay? But when leaders are doing that, they're not stepping back. They don't have the perspective because they're in the weeds. They're in among the alligators. They don't have the perspective they need to figure out what needs to happen. So we don't want them doing that on a regular basis. You got to be a few steps ahead of your people. And you can only do that if you can read the trends. Leaders are readers of their resources. So a good worker looks at a challenge and says, what can I do to help? And a high achiever says, how can I solve the problem? And a peak performer wonders, what can I do to reach the next level so I can overcome this? But leaders think differently. They're thinking in terms of the resources and how to maximize them. They see a challenge, a problem, an opportunity. They're going to think about, and this is on a slide, just a couple on, so you don't need to write it down. But they're thinking, who's the best person to take this on? What resources do we have? What raw materials, what technology, what information, and so forth do we have that'll help us? What do we need financially? And how can I encourage my team to make it happen, to achieve success? So that's the leadership bias. That's how they're looking at everything. They're focusing on mobilizing the people, leveraging the resources to achieve the goals. So they have to always know, they have to always be reading the resources. They're readers of people. Intuitive leaders can sense what's happening among the people. They understand what their hopes are, what their fears are. Understanding the fears is a really important thing. They know what's happening in the room. They get. Are they curious? Are they mad? Are they scared? What's up? They get it. They get it. Micah used to say, I have a talent for showing up when they were doing something wrong. Now, I've done that right all day, Peg, and then you show up and I did it wrong. I did it right all day. Just a talent of mine. One day I saw a group of them visiting. Not really visiting, but there were several of them sort of up where they wouldn't normally be up, So I wandered over, and they all looked very guilty. And I walk a little further, and I see one of them is under the desk, has her head under the desk, so just the rest of her sticking out, and her head under the desk. I'm like, what? And she backs out, had a kitten. So somebody brought the cute little kitten in to show everybody. And the kitten, of course, had gotten loose. It's a kitten. And so now everyone's looking guilty. Well, that's leadership intuition. When you know something's up, you don't know exactly what it is, but there might be a kitten. So always react to those things. Always pay attention. And leaders are readers of themselves. As Jim said earlier, if you can't discipline yourself, you can't discipline somebody else. If you can't read yourself, you can't read anybody else. You've got to be honest with yourself. We all know people that you say to them, hey, you know, this isn't working for you. Oh, well, yeah, but it's not my fault. Yeah, if only this hadn't happened. If only that hadn't happened. If only so-and-so hadn't done that. Oh, you know, if only, if only, if only. They're victims of everything. That's not leadership. It's not even being honest with yourself. But you know, I know people who are so sincere, I think they believe it. I think they really do believe it's somebody else's fault. But gosh, isn't it powerful to say, no, it's my own doing. I did this. I was in a group one day talking about choice, and I said, wild horses did not bring you in here today. And one of the folks, these are agents on the phone, one of them says, they did, Peg. They left right before you got here. So, I promise you, wild horses did not bring you. You have got to take responsibility for yourself in what you do. So if a leader becomes self-centered or pessimistic or just too rigid, that's a pretty common problem. Too rigid. They're no longer good leaders. John says there are 3 levels of leadership intuition: those who naturally understand it, those who can be nurtured to understand it, and those who will just never get it. He says those are the ones it's hard to explain this law to. But probably it doesn't come up that much unless somebody gets sent to something like this or forced to read the book. Chances are those who will never understand it are not having anything to do with it, so no one's bothered. Everyone's happy. So if they don't want to be leaders, they don't want to understand, well, they might. Problem is they might want to be bosses. They don't necessarily want to be the leaders. That's a whole different story. But you really want leaders. So most people are in the second category. They can be nurtured to understand it. We've said it many times. Leadership can be learned. It's not something that just absolutely comes naturally. But there are a few people who just are not going to get it. So here's something else to think about on the way home, on the way back to work, later on this evening. You know, where are you? Are you a natural leader who needs to make sure that you hit on all those other points that we've talked about? Are you somebody who needs to nurture your leadership skills? And what does that mean? Which ones do you really want to work on? And what do we do about that? And if anybody wants to have a conversation on particular things that they're interested in working on, I'd be happy to help you with some resources for that. Perhaps you've got mentors, perhaps you've got your training department, perhaps you've got HR. Different places have different level, different caliber of help in those regards. But certainly happy to help anybody with resources if you're feeling like, yeah, this is an area I really want more help in. We can absolutely visit about that. So you want to think about, what do you want to develop further? You want to exercise your intuition. So when you see a challenge in your organization, here are those questions we talked about a minute ago that I promised would come up in writing so you don't have to write them down. So you might even write these down on a card or put them on your phone or do something where you can save these. Because if you're the leader and you see a little small disaster, you don't want to necessarily be jumping in to do the work to fix the disaster, although sometimes that's the right thing. But in general, you want to first be saying, who's really the best person to do this? What resources do we have? What kind of money is it going to take? And how can I encourage my team? Not that I'm going to jump in and do it. And you do this a few times, it becomes second nature. It's all part of your leadership intuition. More exercise. So think about when you see a decision got made that you don't feel like it's working all that well. It wasn't necessarily your decision, but you don't feel like it's working all that well. What is the situation? What's the popular choice? What do people think should happen? And why? There could be good reasons, there could be bad reasons. That might not be the right choice. But it's always interesting to know what the popular choice is. Why is it working or not working? What's your intuition saying? What leadership law might it be violating? Sometimes policies come out like the bell curve policy that violates half a dozen leadership laws. Think about that. Is it being done? Is the job being done as well as it could be? Is it damaging relationships, the decision that got made? It's violating laws. There's a good chance that it's also damaging relationships. And what other ways could it be solved? So again, you might want to save these so you've got them handy, because these are good questions to ask. These keep your leadership hat on your head, not your fireman's hat. Okay? No offense, Jim. But we don't want to be fighting fires all day long. We want to have the leadership hat on, where we're figuring out how to stop the fires from happening next time. That's what we're looking for. Thoughts on the law of intuition? You all intuitively get? The law of magnetism. Who you are is who you attract. So birds of a feather flock together. You've heard it your whole life, right? Do you see examples of that in your organization? Where people who sort of are alike in some way all end up together? And is that good? A lot of times it's not. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
There's no diversity. They all think alike. There's no challenge to go outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
They don't set different goals.
Mm-hmm.
They just see everything with one sight. There's
Yep.
no different eyes appeal, and they don't try to bring other people in because they like it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They like to be in the comfort zone.
Right.
So if there are other people that come in, they tend to push them away
Mm-hmm.
because they don't encourage other thoughts and
No.
other opinions.
It becomes very uncomfortable to be always the one with the other opinion.
Yes.
And eventually it becomes so uncomfortable you start making that next decision because it is so uncomfortable. Yeah, if we don't have diversity of thought, we've got trouble. Absolutely. So if you are a good leader, you're going to be a magnet for other good folks. I mean, a lot of times you've got somebody in your organization, people are like, gets an opening in her department, I am so there. All right. People want to be, we go back to the law of respect also, people want to be in that group. They want to be there. And that person has that attraction for those people. So this last line is exactly what you're talking about, Joe. Find people who believe what you believe but think different thoughts. So you do want to line up your values. You don't want to be teaming up with people who don't have the values of you and your organization. But you need different thoughts. That's the key. So you're looking for harmony. You want to know, this is another know yourself situation. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, understand what you really want, what you really believe. And then you need to attract people who are on that same path, who are in harmony, but you're looking for different thoughts. If you're adding to your team then, you want to think about, what are your weaknesses? You want to complement your weaknesses with their giftedness. Think about what your giftedness is and complement with other people who maybe need some more help with that. The better you can do that, the better the whole team is. You're looking for similar attitudes and values. And when I say attitude, I'm talking like positive attitude. If you get some negative Nelly, it drags the life out of you by the end of the day, right? You can't, if you're a positive person, you need some positive people around. You can have somebody who's, kind of a wise guy you can drag along, that's all right. But just plain negative, whoa, that is just wearing, isn't it? So you don't want that. So you're looking for similar attitudes and values. Maybe you're looking for particular education or background. Might be. And you're looking for good leaders. You don't want, even if somebody's not going into a leadership role right now, you don't want them to be people who don't get or don't appreciate the importance of leadership. Because they're leading their peers, even if they're not leading other people. And if you haven't created that whole situation where you've got people thinking different thoughts, you've just got yes men, right? You've just got people who say yes and agree, and it's exactly, Alice has explained it better than anything I could say. That's exactly how it goes. Everybody supports everybody else, and it's just that one narrow little opinion that everybody's got. So you're thinking about then, what qualities are you looking for in somebody that you would now include in your inner circle? What qualities are you looking for in business relationships, personal relationships, and why, and most importantly, do you have those qualities? You can say you want people with a good attitude all day long, but if you don't have a good attitude, it's going to be hard to get those people. They're not attracted to you. They don't want to play that game. They don't want to be with you. You're the negative Nelly. They're moving on. They're moving on to somebody who is positive. Our final law is the law of connection. Leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. So we have to touch a heart before we ask for a hand, and the first heart we have to touch is our own. Every one of these laws is coming back to us first. Right? It's not everybody else, gang. It's us. We've got to deal with ourselves first before we're dealing with anybody else. We can't lead others to places we haven't been, and we have to know ourselves. We have to know what our giftedness is. It's easy. If I ask you for 3 things you don't do well, you're going to answer me just like that. And I ask you for 3 things you do well, you're going to be a little slower a lot of times than that. Because we aren't that good at that. It's sort of how we are. Okay, we're real quick to criticize ourselves, much more than other people. And this is a do as I say, not as I do situation, because I'm terrible about this. But we're quick to criticize. We need to think, would we be talking to ourselves, would we be talking to somebody else the way we talk to ourselves? Chances are not. I was in a seminar many, many years ago with a therapist was doing the seminar, had written a book on connections and relationships, and said, you should be thinking of yourself, your inner self, as like a 2 or 3-year-old child. And if what you're saying to yourself is not something you would say to that child, then don't do it. You know, if you'd rather think about it as a puppy or a kitten or something, you know. Certainly I talk much nicer to cats and dogs than I do to myself. There's no question about that. So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to be decent to ourselves, and we need to not be so critical of ourselves. But we do have to know not just our weaknesses, but also our gifts. We need to be good about that. John's famous for the line. He uses it all the time. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You've probably, see, you've heard of that one. Very, very famous. Hear it all the time. We have got to connect with people. So how do you connect? First, you're connecting with yourself. You say it over and over. You communicate with openness and sincerity. People don't connect with phonies. If they don't, you got no leadership change. If you're just fake, people don't want to see that. They don't want to connect. You got to know your audience. Learn their names. I got your names in front of me today, and I found this much more comfortable than I did. I don't know why I didn't think of it. Last time was first time. You know, you figure a lot of stuff out. Figured a lot of things went more smoothly this time in a few different areas. But one of them was that I did have your names, and I would always do that. I don't know why I didn't think of it last time. See, I'm on myself because I didn't do that. Okay, I thought of a lot of good things last time. Let's just stop there and not do anything else. But anyway, you got to know your people's names. I told you last time about getting a number of letters from people when I left the job. One of them said, I got more written notes and encouragement from Peg than I did from my own family. And the first thing she said was, on day 2, you knew my name. People love that. Sometimes you don't actually know all the names. Right? You learn them over time, but you know enough of them and you use them that people think you know every single one of them. And then the rest of the time you're going, hey, how you doing? And and you're hoping no one actually. You know. Sometimes I would remember all the first names, but then I would lose track of one, and somebody would be standing in front of me and they'd need something, like a schedule change or something where I really didn't need to know who I was talking to. I'd be like, remind me your last name. And they'd tell me, and then oh yeah, right, here we go. So, you know, it was okay to forget the last names, but it wasn't good to forget the first names. But yeah, I mean, it's something people love, love, love. I would say I've got more compliments on that single ability than anything else I've ever done in my whole life, remembering people's names. So work on that, it's important. Meet your group where they are. You adapt to them. Don't make them adapt to you. I'm not saying there aren't rules, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying when you are with your people, one-on-one or in a group, you are about them. This is adding value to them, not to you. You get it by osmosis because things are going well, all right? But this is about adding value to them. This is not about you. You remember I told my father and my husband, the universe does not revolve around you, all right? That's it, okay? It doesn't. I'm sorry. Life's not fair, and the universe does not revolve around you. I hope I haven't ruined your whole day, but both of those things are true. So we want to be connected. This is all about connection. Focus on them. And they need hope. It's your job to offer them direction and to offer them hope. One leader who did a great job of connecting was Herb Kelleher, who ran Southwest Airlines. And one day, for Boss's Day, his employees took out a full-page ad for Boss's Day. And this is what it says. Thanks, Herb, for remembering every one of our names, for supporting the Ronald McDonald House, for helping load baggage on Thanksgiving. There's a case where the right thing to do wasn't to back up and figure out perspective, it was to move some bags. Sometimes that really is the right thing to do. You have to know the difference. For giving everyone a kiss, and we mean everyone. For listening. For running the only profitable major airline. For singing at our holiday party. For singing only once a year. For letting us wear shorts and sneakers to work. For golfing at the Love Classic with only one club. For out-talking Sam Donaldson. For riding your Harley-Davidson into Southwest headquarters. For being a friend, not just a boss. Happy Boss's Day from each one of your 16,000 employees. This man made connections. That is the goal. That's where we want to be. We want to be tempting our people to take out full-page ads. That's where we want to be. So how do you do it? Walk slowly through your group. Walk slowly around the room. Lean on somebody's desk. Notice what pictures they've got on the desk. Ask them something about it. You'll soon learn who you should be careful. You don't want to spend all day with the answer. But generally, you want to be asking and getting to know people. John talks about Norman Schwarzkopf, who was in the Middle East with thousands of troops. And on Christmas, he started in the first mess hall. And he's the big boss. Started in the first mess hall, shook hands with everybody out there at the tables, went behind the lines and shook hands with the people who were serving the food. Went on to the second and the third mess hall, and then back to the first, because by then there's new people in there. Figures he shook hands, probably 4,000 hands. It might even have been more, I would think. That might be an underestimate. Here's somebody who is connecting. He understands the importance of those folks who are in front of him. And so he's making that connection. And that's what we want to do. And most of us don't have 4,000 or 16,000 people to deal with. We've got fewer than that. So, you go in, I've gone in on holidays, I've served food on holidays. Go in on the overnight shift, that wakes them right up. Yeah, they really do. They really do, because they're always forgotten, right? That's exactly right. We had a huge snowstorm once in Cheyenne. I had people, we did credit card protection, so we had people who had to spend the night, because if you have to be there when somebody loses their credit cards, you have to be there. So they had sleeping bags, and they were spending the night in the center. I mean, we're talking snow. And as soon as, I was only a few miles up the road, as soon as we could get the four-wheel drive pickup out of the driveway. We did it, we went down, I made them toast, because I could figure out how the toaster worked. And like one other thing that I could figure out how to do, I got juice out of the fridge. So I figured out how to do a few things, but that kind of stuff, people remember that kind of stuff. Those are the kinds of things you want to do to connect. All right, any last thoughts before we wrap up? All right, you've been a delightful group, I've really enjoyed you. I hope you can come back in August and September, and we'll have more fun then. Thank you guys very much. You've got, thank you. You've got evaluations in your packets. We appreciate if you fill those out. Let's see. And I've got cards on the table, and on the back of my card, I'm mentioning on October 6th, I'm going to do Live to Lead. It's a simulcast out of Atlanta. So John Maxwell will be speaking as well as 3 other great speakers. And I think you guys would all enjoy that. So there's a little information on the back of the card. You can go online for all the rest. And I thank you very much, and we'll see you next month. And it looks like Nita has something to say.
Thank you, Peg.
Oh,
Another
thank you.
great presentation. Let's give her another hand. Well, since it's the summer months, we will not be back until August the 16th. We'll be back.
We go right there.
And so also, you'll find these outside if you'd like to know what else is going on for the summer months. Please look at this, and if we can help you in any way, please give us a call. We appreciate you being part of the new knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you for doing it for us.